Remember the big talk about how Northrend is going to get shattered in the last Titan? It will be changed. Even the devs themselves foreshadowed that Northrend we're soon going to go to will be different than the one from Vrat. Well, to go along with that, a really suspicious map was just datamined in midnight, showing a bunch of sunken assets, specifically Alliance, Vrat the Lich King assets, with some speculating that this could potentially be Valiance Keep. Seeing that Valiance Keep is literally on the shore itself, it could be possible that it is going to end up underwater. New hints say Azeroth awakens in Northrend, Titans will definitely return, and it will not be pretty. Northrend will feel the consequences, but the real question is, to what extent? If you think classic, especially hardcore, there is the perfect survival guide with rested XP. It gives you the safest routes, hostile enemy warnings, and now even with TBC hardcore it will be 100% optimized for straight survival, amongst getting the absolute best, most optimal routes and information. Furthermore, rested XP offers midnight guides too, but best of all, if you use my link below, you will get 10% off your order immediately. So check out rested XP. I don't know how many of you remember the map from about a year back that was leaked on the forums of like a changed Northrend that had like the writing of Chris Madsen on it, and it was seen as mostly fake, but at the same time there was a little bit of legitimacy to it, as it does actually make some sense, even though it is kind of outlandish. So the reason people have been talking about it is because at the start of this year there was actually a video interview of multiple Blizzard developers that talked about how rebuilding Northrend is specifically a challenge. They told us that it will not just be like a copy of Vrat, like an updated version, and that they will show us how the world has changed over time and that we will see transformed areas. Now we know Northrend has changed a bit based on the book, but seeing that they talked about rebuilding Qualtalas, how here they kind of group multiple zones into Qualtalas, it's likely that the same thing will be happening to Northrend as well. We can see multiple areas just becoming one big part with some changes. Other than the new map that we'll discuss in a bit that was datamined a couple of weeks back in 12.0.7, there is also something interesting going on. So if you watched the previous video, there is a leak that has some legitimacy to it going around about how we might fight Azeroth, that the Titans might successfully convert her and will turn her into our enemy. Regardless if that happens or not, we know for certain that the Titans will be returning to Northrend. That is a confirmed, and that is a big event that will happen. Either the awakening of our world soul as a Titan servant or just the Titans crash landing into Northrend. Both events should cause some very big changes to Northrend in general. At this point, it is highly likely that Northrend will face a significant structural change. Personally, I don't think it is crazy at all as that original whiteboard map, because that one is missing like half the zones, but if the map was real, it could be possible that the map was like some early version of what they were originally planning. The very interesting thing though is this very strange map that people have recently discovered that I personally find very puzzling, because on one side it looks like a huge hint, on the other it just kind of doesn't make all that much sense. So let me show you what we got going on. So in 12.0.7 we discovered this really mysterious map for the Sporefall raid. So the Sporefall raid seemingly has nothing to do with Northrend or the Last Titan. It's literally just a Harandar raid where we fight this fungal giant. Sure, Harandar is technically connected to all of Azeroth, so I could see something maybe going on there, but there is really no concrete evidence of this being related to anything. Now, the interesting thing though, this giant map was discovered and the actual raid is like a tiny little square in the right corner of the map. So the Sporefall raid is like less than 10% of the screen, and instead there is this one giant map of this broken landmass of a bunch of rivers, deltas and such. Now, here is where it gets interesting. So on this map that literally looks like flooded, like it was shattered and flooded, we discovered multiple sunken assets, most importantly Vrat the Lich King Alliance sunken assets. We see like the walls and towers under the sea with only a keep kind of halfway out of the sea alongside Vrat the Lich King assets. So I gotta say, this seems like the most random hint ever, but at the same time I feel like it is just kinda too much of a coincidence. On one hand, why would they put these Last Titan hints in a random raid in 12.0.7 that has literally nothing to do with Northrend Titans or whatever else is going on. On the other hand, the use of Wrath of Lich King assets, in my opinion, is just incredibly suspicious. I mean, if they wanted to show Alliance assets under the ground, why would they use Wrath assets? For the Alliance, we had gotten so many more updated models of all the buildings, all the way from Warlords of Draenor up to Midnight. There's so many more relevant assets they could use, but here it kind of looks like Valiance Keep is being under the water. This got the community to speculate that this could potentially be like a leftover zone from development, some hidden future content that was buried in this random raid map from Midnight, which is obviously a bit weird, but we do discover similar things. I mean, not the same map, but Rootlands was something that was discovered like ages ago that ended up being Halandar all the way in Midnight. Furthermore, you gotta keep in mind that the saga itself is really just one big expansion, like split into 3, so it's all related. I mean, the Rootlands of the Void Within ended up being Midnight content, a lot of Beledar stuff and Kazagar was left over, and it looks like that is highly likely that it is all going to happen in Midnight and now in 12.2. So it does make sense that some Midnight content foreshadows what is going to happen in the last Titan. Actually, Sunken Valiance Keep makes quite a bit of sense. I mean, the keep itself is all the way on the shore. It's technically a port city. If some tectonic changes happen in Northrend, this would be like the first place to sink. By the way, the story is currently set up. Some change to Northrend, as I said, is obviously certain. I mean, whether it is as crazy as the whiteboard map suggests, obviously that's up for debate. Personally, I don't think Blizzard is going to go absolutely crazy and like completely like rebuild Northrend from scratch, but I am expecting something akin to like certain cataclysm type changes. We can still keep the same zones, but like half of Ice Crown could be broken up or all Dual can be raised from the ground. Like certain zones could definitely be shattered. What also makes sense is that they're going to be destroying our faction bases that we've had back in Wrath. It just thematically makes sense, even though I think it would be cool to go back to like War Stronghold again, like when you fly in on a Zeppelin. We still don't know what the new capital could be once we go to Northrend. Some most likely options are like Wormrest Temple, just significantly expanded, or us potentially taking over the Ice Crown Citadel and just using the Citadel as one big capital, which I think would be a very popular option. But in order to do that, Blizzard would have to kind of deal with the faction-specific bases that we've had from Wrath. The book already kind of set this up as they confirmed that some of these are completely abandoned, some just have like skeleton crews, but none have been particularly active since we left in Wrath. It's not like we go to Northrend and we got like this crazy presence back from Wrath. That's just kind of the gameplay side of things. I mean, even during the Cataclysm novel, when Garrosh returned from Northrend, we know a significant part of our resources were already sent away from Northrend. Since then, it's been a while, and Northrend has been confirmed to be a very dangerous place post Shadowlands, so our presence has definitely been minimal. So it will make sense that we could get rid of our bases in this like half Cataclysm event. As I said, don't expect that we're going to get like a full shattering that's going to turn Northrend into like Outland, but something like the Barrens I think is very likely. Like Barrens was still Barrens post Cataclysm, but it was different, like new models, some big changes, but still kind of the same concept. I think this type of content is coming for Northrend in the last Titan. Thanks for watching. Check out my video on how we could be fighting Azeroth as the Titans finally awaken her by clicking on the screen, and also subscribe to my brand new Witcher Lore channel by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time!